How are we doing, everybody? Thank you for once again tuning into the Iron Purpose podcast. I realize I never announce who I am when I'm doing this. I guess I figured everybody knows who I am if you're tuning in. But if you don't, my name is Bailey, and I'm happy to be here today. Happy to be recording. I got an awesome episode for you today. It is a shorter one, but it is still going to be episode 14 of the Iron Purpose podcast. Today I have Miranda Maverick. She is a professional mixed martial artist who competes in the UFC. She's in the featherweight division, and she has been a lot of fun to watch, a lot of fun to follow over the years. She's had some successes, had some adversity, had some defeats, and we get into that a little bit in the episode. We get to talk about kind of how she grew up, how she's able to get through a loss and turn it into a lesson, as I kind of describe after the fact of our conversation. And then also preparing how to stay sharp during those times and juggling all the different things that she is doing. She is a woman of faith, so she kind of gets into that a little bit as well when it comes to different Bible verses that she's hung on to throughout her life. Very much appreciate her time that she gave. It was a super good time, super good conversation. Hope you enjoyed as much as I did. This is the Iron Purpose podcast, episode number 14, Miranda Maverick. Stay sharp, everybody. All right, Miranda Maverick, thank you so much again for doing this. How are you doing?
Doing good. Worked this morning, getting ready ahead to training, so fitting it in.
Heck yeah. So what else are you up to nowadays? You don't have anything on the officially out yet that you got to fight or anything, but
Right. I don't have any fights scheduled yet. I'm hoping sometime around April, like I called out initially. It's just a waiting game for the matchmakers to get down the road to me, They've got so many
right.
people on the roster that it's like everybody gets a turn. So just waiting for that. Obviously, only want to take top 15 fights now. Hopefully top 12, top 10 to move me up the ladder. It's been quite a waiting game. Aside from that, I've got a full-time job, hustling with that. I've got my businesses going, and just trying to train is the priority.
Absolutely. Busy lady for sure. So for those who don't know who you are, do you mind just giving a brief, just kind of where you came from, growing up, what created Miranda Maverick?
Yeah, so to start, I'll say I was never the kid that thought I was going to be a professional athlete when I grew up. I was always a big nerd, still am, as my day job can tell you. I was always just a smarty pants that was also an athlete. I was always a good athlete, but never like the best athlete in the things that I did. And when I found jujitsu, it kind of became like this, wow. I am one of the best out there. And we started by just training at home, watching the UFC. Literally, we're just fans. And my dad and my siblings and I would learn in the middle of the living room. And the reason my dad started teaching us by watching the UFC, pausing it, learning what he could, was because we had somebody in my family who was assaulted when they were
Oh,
young.
wow.
And he never wanted anything like that to happen to me or my other siblings. And
For
so
sure.
started teaching us basics when we were young. I kind of fell in love with it. Everybody else just saw it as, we were wrestling around in the living room. And it's like, no, we literally learned arm bars, rear naked chokes, all that. And so when at 16 years old, I was like, hey, Dad, I really want to go check this out. I want to see if I'm any good at it. He was like, hey, find a way to pay for it and you go. I'm supportive. And so I did. He and my little brother actually helped me chop firewood, and all the sales that we got from firewood went towards my gym fees. So very
Wow.
old school with that. Started at a gym, started with jujitsu, competed. Within a few weeks, I was good. I ended up placing in the men's division even, and the women's and the juvenile division. And I was like, wow, this is what I want to do with my life. I still had my career and everything. It was just more of a hobby. And then when I got to where I was about 18 years old, my coaches were like really pushing me to try MMA. And I was always like, no, I do not want punched in the face. And I finally went and watched some amateur fights live, watched these two women fight, and I thought it was the most embarrassing thing I'd ever seen. It was a terrible fight. And I was like, okay, I could do better than that. And if that's what I'm going up against, like, throw me in. And
Right.
so it was like 2 weeks after I turned 18. It only had 3 weeks of striking experience. I got thrown into the cage, fought, won within the first round, and I told myself if I won and I liked it, I'd go be the best I could be.
Mm.
And so that's kind of the history. I worked a full-time job. I went to college through it all. I've never not worked a job during being in MMA, and we're still there now. I'm a data analyst for the Hershey company right now, so a bit of a nerd on the side, and still train, of course. And then I have my own businesses, raising bees and making honey, packaging it up, flavoring it, that kind of stuff, and also making pickles. So prowlerpickles.com if anybody wants to check it out.
Heck yeah, I'm a big pickle fan, so I might actually have to go visit that after this.
There you go.
I saw a video the other day you had posted. I don't know if it was your brother wrestling your dad outside.
Yeah, that's my brother
And
and
so
my dad. Yeah.
it's so cool how your dad still, can still throw people around. My dad's the same way. Growing up, we'd all wrestle with him and stuff. And I've been in law enforcement for probably 5 years now, a police officer for 3, and then a correctional officer. And
Mhm.
I'll even go over to my dad's, we'll watch UFC fights and stuff, and he'll like square up with me. And I'm like, man, I,
Yeah.
I don't even know if I could take you still. So
Yeah, that's
I'm sure.
us, It finally got to the point where it was like, okay, dad wouldn't let us all three attack him at once anymore when we were like low-level teenagers. He was like, okay, no more three at a time. Like, not me and my sister and my brother. Would be like, okay, two of you only. And then now it's to the point when my brother was doing wrestling and stuff. Now they have like pretty toe-to-toe matches. That was just a funny video because I was like, there we go. He finally got advantage of Brock. But
That was
Brock
awesome.
still has to like, not throw him in the air or anything. Dad's like, I'm getting old, calm down. But my
Right.
dad is like the toughest person I know. I always joke that when I started dating, I was like, man, I gotta have a guy that measures up a little bit, or my dad's just gonna like torture them.
Right.
And he still does torture Pete. He'll like literally get him down and like tickle him and stuff. But Pete fits in
Oh, that's
well
the
with the
worst.
athleticism of the family, which is nice.
Oh, that's amazing. And that's cool that your dad also instilled that in you at a young age. Like if this is what you want, you got to work for it. You got to go get
For
it.
sure.
Because you see a lot of times, especially with the younger generation, they want to get rich quick, want to get famous quick, TikTok famous and whatnot, and they don't understand like sometimes you got to do some stuff you don't want to do. You probably didn't want to go chop wood, but you knew that this was going to pay for my gym membership, and
Yeah, it's funny you
that's
say that. We
extremely cool.
actually just got done talking about how it's almost easier to succeed doing things you hate. And you have to find a way to
Cool.
accept that. People are like, "Oh, you'll never work a day in your life if you find something you love." And it's like, well, sometimes to be successful, it's not stuff you love. You start loving the things that make you successful. It's the opposite. It's like my dad used to say he didn't like pig shit, but that's when we were young, he had hog barns and he got to where he just loved seeing hog manure pumped down because every time that happened, it meant he was getting a paycheck. It meant his
Mm,
kids were going to have a living. And he was like, man, I'd sit there and just bathe in hog shit coming out of the sprayers in the field. And he'd just be like, wow, I'm smiling because this is
wow.
the opportunity God gave me to go from nothing to something. And it's
Absolutely.
like, yeah, this isn't fun every day. People are like, oh, you must love MMA. And it's like, some days I do. The days I win, I love it. The days I get to go in and I'm not hurt and I'm feeling good, which is about 3% of the days, it's great. Every other day when I go out of bed and my back hurts and my neck hurts and I'm only 27 years old and told, hey, you're going to have long-term issues. Yeah, it's
Uh-huh.
not so fun, when I have eye surgeries and find out I might be blinded for life and had to go through that
Wow.
not so great. There's training days where I'm just dead and dying and people are beating me up. Like there's a lot more rounds I lose than I win, right? And it's not necessarily fun. I always love when people are like have fun and I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll go make money, thanks. And but at the same time it's like it becomes something I love. I love that I've had this opportunity, these experiences, um and all of the connections I've made through it all and the success that it's been able to provide me and my family.
Absolutely. And what a great segue. Another question I had for you was how do you handle a loss? Like what are the things that you go through to kind of get back out of your own head? And maybe the mental part is more difficult than the actual physical part, but what advice did you have for somebody that's maybe going through some adversity right now and trying to turn it into a win?
Yeah, well, one, there's faith beyond anything. For me, I'm a Christian. I pray about everything. I try to give away my anxiety, my fear, to God before the fights. And I tell myself, listen, we've done everything we can up to this point to get here. Whatever God's will is, that's what's going to happen. And I'm just going to put in my best to meet him halfway.
Mm,
And so I try before the fight to prepare myself no matter what happens, because this isn't a sport that's solely based on skill. A lot of it is. But there's luck that happens. There's a puncher's chance, as they say. There's a second mistake that happens. Your body may not be feeling 100% even though everything else went right. There's just stuff that might happen. Or like in my last fight, getting elbowed in the back of the head. We couldn't have guessed that was going to happen, and it kind of
Hmm.
messed up my fighting, right? But it's like you can't be prepared for everything in there. You just have to go out there and try your best and be prepared from training. Then the second aspect is you're going to lose. There's going to be losses, whether it be in fighting or in your life. You know, I always tell people, I don't care if you fight or not. My respect level for people isn't based on their skill level to fight. I don't give a crap. It's who you are as a person. Are you trying your best at whatever you are trying to do?
Yeah.
And for me, an aspect of mine that helped me get out of the whole mental like drop when I lost or when I lose. And let me tell you, it's still there, right? It doesn't matter what I do, it's still going to be there. The highest highs and the lowest lows in the sport. But my coach, who amusingly is not religious, said this to me one time, and it just has resonated with me, and I wrote it down, and it was great. And he was like, write down all the aspects of your life that you are, things that'll never disappear. For instance, I'm a Christian. That'll never change. You know, I'm going to be a Christian whether I have losses in life, wins in life, etc. I'm always going to be a student. I'm always going to be a teacher in some capacity. I'm always going to be a sister. I'm always going to be a wife. Hopefully, one day I'll be a mother. Like, all these things that I wrote down that are not based on whether I win or lose a fight. And it's like, man, what a good way to decompartmentalize myself from fighting, right?
Uh,
Because sometimes we get into this attitude where it's like, man, this is my identity. I am a fighter. I'm a UFC fighter, and every time I lose, I get all this hate and all this stuff. And it's like, man, I am a failure. I am hated. And it's like, no, you're not. Like, your family doesn't hate you because you lost a fight. You know, the people in your life are going to stay relevant, and those things that you are in life are going to stay relevant. I'm not going to be not a wife all of a sudden because I lost a fight, you know?
right.
So that really helped me. And then matching those personality traits with that,
Uh-huh.
and just seeing where I was in life.
Oh, that's beautiful. You know, that's like the my family still loves me, my God still loves me, and I still love
Mhm.
me. Like that's sometimes
Yeah.
the most difficult one to get through, but
Yep.
that's cool because when those doubts do come, it's like, yeah, okay, maybe you could say that about me, but I have these things that are rock solid. They're not
Yeah.
changing. You can't change that about me. That's
Mhm.
I wrote that down as well. I'm gonna use that. That's
All
amazing.
right.
What else I got for you here? So that's kind of what you do after a loss to kind of get back out of there. What do you do when preparing for a fight, or whether it's a meeting at work or just kind of like a bigger event in your life that takes up some time? What is something that you do to prepare and make sure that you're at the best you can be during that time? Because I really like what you said too. Like you're a fighter and you want to be the best that you can be, but you more focus on that journey side of it. It's not
Yeah.
like I'm a UFC fighter. It's like, no, what kind of fighter? Or even like preparing like as you're going up, like I want to be a UFC fighter rather than focusing on that one title that can be taken away. It's like, what kind of fighter am I going to be when I become a UFC fighter? Because then it's all you,
Mhm.
and you just got to focus
Yeah.
on yourself.
Right,
Um,
exactly. And improving yourself day to day. You know, as far as
yeah,
preparing, I think of little goals. At the end of the day, just like in Christianity, it is about the destination, not the journey. You know, when people are like, oh, it's all about the journey, not the destination, I actually like clap back at that. I say that's nonsense. Our life is about salvation. It's not about the journey to get there. If you go down the road, you may have lost salvation just from that. You don't get to YOLO and then all of a sudden be like, okay, I'm in heaven now. Like, that may happen for some, but not when you know what you're doing is wrong the entire time you live. You know, you
right.
don't get to just play the game of, well, I'll ask for forgiveness later. That's not how it works. And I see that in life as well, and I see that with every event I do. I don't get to sit here and like, this is a good example, right? Obviously I don't eat these when I'm in camp, but like I have M&Ms here, it's almost empty. I'm like, I don't get to sit here and have handfuls of M&M all during camp and be like, I've still got abs, it's fine, right? It's like, no, you have to intentionally do every action, every little goal that you have. My goals are day by day. I like write them down on a schedule, and I'm like, okay, we're going to get this done today. It doesn't matter if I'm feeling good, feeling bad. As long as I'm not injured, I'm going to do this today. And these are the things I'm going to get done. Am I going to give it 100%? I'm going to try, but sometimes I'm only at 5%, and I have to just pick the things that I prioritize. And so leading up to those events, I make sure that I have priorities. I make sure that I finish those high priorities, and I focus on like the things like you said, what is going to mean the most, right? Not necessarily what's going to get me the most money or get me the most success. It's like what's going to mean the most to everyone else around me. I could cheat and get a lot farther a lot faster. I could do OnlyFans and I could get a lot more money per month and I probably wouldn't have to work my job. And it's like, man, why not? It's so much easier. It still crosses, your mind. And it's like, oh, I don't even have to do this worse thing. There's people doing worse out there. I could just do these kind of pictures. And it's like, no, no, don't take shortcuts. Like God rewards those that are consistent. Like stay
Amen.
consistent. He'll provide, and it doesn't matter if I'm making hundreds of thousands a year or just 10,000 extra a year. He's going to provide, and I'll end up having a successful life and be able to help my family.
Absolutely. Oh, that's awesome. I love that. Transitioning a little bit, this just kind of came across my mind. When it comes to like walkout songs, I'm sorry, I don't know off the top of my head what yours is, but what goes into the process of picking a walkout song, and why have you chosen the one that you chose?
Mine's completely just like based on who I am. So mine's just the Top Gun theme because my last name's
Yes.
Maverick. And I'm like all
Yes.
American, all everything when I walk out. So it's just the Top Gun theme. I haven't changed it since the first time I did it. I think it kind of gives me that trademark. As soon as you hear the dun dun dun, like everybody knows it's me, And I think that's where I was trying to get to. The first couple walkouts I had and throughout Invicta, I always changed it up. I used Rise by Katy Perry, I think it was. Can't stand her as an artist, so I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And then, even though the song was great, and then I used Only Jesus by Casting Crowns rewrote their song
Ooh,
for me. I don't know if you knew that, but
really?
I don't know if they rewrote it per se, but they put in
Tweaked
like
it a little bit.
rocky tones for me because I was like, I want it to like get everybody riled up. And we did that my first 2 fights in the UFC. And you know what?
Wow.
Neither of those walkouts got shown. And I was like, wow. And I don't know that it was bias or discrimination. We don't know, but I was like, okay, I can still represent my faith without it being my walkout song.
Amen.
And so I made it the Top Gun theme song, and I'm like, there we go. Everybody knows that's Maverick walking out. So
I love that. That's amazing. And then you talked about your faith, being a Christian, being a believer. What is there, if there's any, I don't want to put you on the spot here, but do you have a favorite Bible verse or a passage that has meant the most to you throughout your life?
I don't know about meant the most to me. I used to, I have one that's more relevant now, but I have Psalm 23. Everybody knows it, maybe
Mm-hmm.
not by heart, but I memorized it by heart when I was young. And when I would have bad days or whatever, I'd literally be sitting in bed crying and like just say that over and over to myself. And I did it a lot through college. I had like a real rough patch going through college where I
Yeah,
moved away from family and everything. So that's one that, it's pretty traditional, but that's one of them that really got me through. Now, just to represent me again, like when people see my gear and stuff, a lot of it has Psalm 144 on it. And that is the whole God trains my hands for battle, my fingers for war, that kind of one. And I really like it just because it is relevant to my fighting, but it also
absolutely.
means more than that, like we're prepared with God's armor to be ready for anything he throws at us. And we need to know that we're made in his image to do that. And so that's kind of what it represents to me. It's on a lot of my gear at fearthemaverick.com if anybody wants to check it out. But I've
Yes.
got like rash guards, everything else that I have on it. And I just have that as my thing.
Cards on there too. I did
Hey,
get a
there we
card from
go.
you.
That's right. That's right.
I
You
keep it
get
in the
signed
back.
cards, autographed
Yes.
pictures, all of it.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for giving us your time here, especially with somebody with you being in the spotlight, fighting, having success, having failures, and just all the stuff that you're doing and trying to managing it all. I could probably pick your brain for hours and take all kinds of notes.
I
And
appreciate it.
this isn't the first time that you've done this, so it really does mean a lot. And I'm hoping that other people can see your story and be inspired by it.
Yeah.
And keep on doing what you're doing. It's awesome. It's fun to watch you. I'm a big fan. It'd be cool to be able to come see you live one of these days. Maybe your
Yeah.
next fight, or whether you got some coming up. But
No, that'd be awesome. And you keep inspiring people too. It's great what you're doing with it.
thank you. That means a lot. All right. Well, I won't keep you any longer. Miranda Maverick, thank you so
All right.
much.
Thank you.
Yes, we'll talk to you
Appreciate
later.
it. All right. God bless.
What an awesome conversation with an awesome person in Miranda Maverick. Shout out to her. Thanks again so much for taking the time to come on, speak with us, even if it's just for a few minutes. Greatly appreciate the time that she was able to give in the midst of her busy schedule, training to stay on her A game as a mixed martial artist in the UFC. Full-time job working as an analyst for Hershey. Like, that's That's pretty neat. Doing all these other side quests with her pickles that she's got and the honey and the gear that she's selling on our website. Make sure you check all that stuff out if you want some fresh honey or if you're looking at some different pickle options. Or maybe you're a fight fan like myself and want to get some merch, like signed autographed cards. She's got gloves. She's got, what else did she say? Rash guards for jujitsu, all kinds of other stuff on there. So it'd be cool if you went on there and supported her in her endeavors. But the conversation was, even though it was short, it was packed full of awesome things that I was able to take some notes on. And one of the biggest ones was, it's easier to succeed when you do things you hate. And a lot of times people say, if you find a job that you love, you're never going to work a day in your life. And myself, I really, really love working in the jail. I love my job as a correctional officer, but does that mean every day is good? Does that mean I love every single second of what I'm doing? She shared the analogy that her dad, he's paying the bills by shoveling horse or pig poop, and he said he enjoyed the sound that it made because he knew that he was making money when he was doing that. So that's a good analogy to think of, but maybe when you first started, the smell can't be the greatest, and that environment can't be the greatest. So maybe you really don't like every single day of your job, but that doesn't mean that that's a bad thing. Because I think when you're outside your comfort zone, when you're on that stone, just getting ground into the ground or getting put into the fire, a lot of times you think you're burning or melting or just getting beat up. But along the lines of the Iron Purpose podcast, the purpose, Iron Purpose, it reminds me of the analogy of like a blacksmith sticking that form, whatever it is, the iron, that metal into the fire, taking it out and beating it into what it's supposed to become, sharpening it, fashioning it into how it is supposed to be at its best and what it can do for whoever is using it and taking advantage of the product that is there. And a lot of times that's us in life. You get thrown into the fire and you think, man, my life is over. You just feel like life's just beating you down. And a lot of times these situations are opportunities. A lot of times you don't think of it as that, but they are opportunities to grow from it, grow from that adversity as a lesson. And I was talking with a guy at work, actually an inmate at work, and he was talking about how getting into jail, really was a very, very tough time, and it still is as he's there. But he's like, I don't look at it as a loss. A lot of people, when you see an L, you think of it as a loss. But that same L can also represent a lesson, loss into lesson. And that's something that'll stick with me for a long time. He said I didn't have to pay him for that piece of knowledge. He said I could share that for free. So loss into lesson, that kind of goes right with, it's easier to succeed when you do things you hate. When you can look at a loss, when you can look at something you don't enjoy, going to the gym, lifting really heavy weights, it's difficult. It's a trying time. It's not super fun. There are some psychos out there that I really enjoy getting in the gym and just feeling that pain. And it's therapeutic for a lot of people. And even for myself, I enjoy the after part of it, feeling good, looking good, feeling my best. But it's during that time, during that process of doing that thing that it's okay to do something that you don't like. You don't have to enjoy every single moment of your life, and that's okay, because there is still something that can be learned through it that can help you better on down the road. And I think that's exactly what Miranda was talking about with that story. She also shared something that her trainer or one of her coaches had explained to her is write down on a piece of paper. And I think this could be especially used if you're feeling down. If you're in the middle of a situation where you feel like you can't amount up to something, maybe you feel like you're worthless, maybe you feel like you're not loved, maybe you feel like people don't care, maybe you feel overlooked at work or maybe in a relationship, whatever it might be, taking a piece of paper and writing things down of who you are as a person, who you are to other people, and what you are. She said she's a Christian, she's a believer in Jesus, so she's going to write down, I'm a Christian, I'm a believer. I'm a wife, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I am a mother, aunt, uncle. I am a correctional officer, I am a therapist, I am a pastor. Whatever these things may be at those times, sure, you may lose your job, sure, you may retire and not be those things anymore. But in that given moment when somebody's putting you down, when you're in a situation where you feel like you've messed up, those things are still true. And a lot of times when we're in those situations, the negative thoughts come into our mind and they try to tell us things that isn't true. The lies. Like in the last episode, or a couple episodes ago with my Uncle Troy, talking about fear is a liar. And when you listen to those lies, that's when things start to snowball. That's when, in my experience anyway, with anxiety, that's when things start to snowball, and I start to go, well, who even am I? You kind of lose sight of your identity because you start identifying with these negative things that are going on in your life. Whether you lose a job, whether you break your ankle or you're sick, or more of it in the mental side of things, where say you get in a fight with somebody or you lose a relationship, you start to identify with those things rather than taking them head on, saying, yes, this is happening to me, but you're not going to take my joy. You're not going to steal who I am because you don't have the right to do that. We hold the keys to our minds. We hold the keys to what we decide to do with the thoughts in our head. I had to think about that for a second. And in the impact unit in the jail, I've talked about it a couple times, we had an opportunity to kind of sit down and think about the things that we were thinking about. We have a meditation period, and I said, take time, these 10 minutes during the meditation, to write down things that's going through your mind. Because when we're thinking about things, that's when it snowballs. That's when it can get twisted. That's when we can start believing those lies. But when you write them down with a pen or a pencil or whatever it is that you're using to write with, we choose what gets put on that paper. It's a lot easier to identify the good things and the bad things when we are writing those things down. Just like Miranda said, all the truths in your life that nobody can take away. And even if it is something that can be taken away, like a job, or maybe you crash your vehicle, or you lose money or something, stuff that can be taken away, at least you can write down there and reason with it and think about those thoughts that you're thinking about as you're putting it down on the paper. I like to talk a lot, as you can tell. So a lot of times it's getting them out, verbally talking, because when I am talking, it's a lot harder for me to listen to the things that are coming into my mind. So maybe you're not a writer. I would love to be better at journaling. That's something I got to really focus on, try to get better at. But I see these times too as a journaling session for myself, because I'm getting my words out and not sitting there listening to what I'm thinking about. As they come out, I get to choose what comes out. I get to choose what I believe. And writing those things down helps you see it and believe it even more so. Maybe write them down there and stick them up at your locker at the gym, or on your desk at work, or maybe at the mirror in your bathroom. I am a Christian. I am a husband. I am a father. I am whatever those things are that people can't take away from you, and hold on to them. Don't let the enemy, make you think that you're anything less than that. She also talked about a couple Bible verses that she holds close to her. Some verses that have meant a lot to her growing up, and then now, as she's a fighter. Psalm 144 is the one that she has that she holds on to right now, and it's, "Blessed be the Lord, my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle." And even just writing that Bible verse down, to be honest with you, and listening to it, whether you're a believer or not, I think there's a lot of value in that. Blessed be the Lord, my rock. Something that I can identify with, something that I can focus on and understand that this is my rock, this is my foundation, this is what I'm strong in, and nobody can take that away from me. And at least at the end of the day, if I had just a really scummy, crummy day, I know that I am loved by God. I know that I am loved by my family, and I know that I am loved by myself. And she also mentioned kind of the, just like the knight right here on my hat. New hats, by the way. They're probably going to be gone by the time this episode comes out, because I don't have a whole lot of them. But putting on that full armor of God, identifying what those things look like in your life to intentionally set yourself up for success that day. Success over perfection, because we're not going to be perfect. And success, like I talked about with Nick Speliopoulos in his episode, it's a self-determined word, so we get to choose what that looks like for us. Getting up in the morning, taking a look at the armor that we're putting on, whether it's a meditation period, just preparing yourself for the day, whatever it might look like. And then she also mentioned the 23rd Psalm, which a lot of people do know what it is, even if you aren't a believer. But I got it here pulled up for you. I'm reading it out of the Bible app in the ESV version, English Standard Version. And this is a Psalm of David. Psalms 23:1. "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the path of righteousness for his name's sake. This is one of my favorite parts right here. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, and my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. And that verse kind of sums up exactly what we talked about that whole episode with Miranda. We can choose what we identify with, what our identity is, and what our identity is in. We don't have to listen to the outside noises. And like it said there in which verse was that? 4, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. So even though I'm going through a really difficult time in my life, when you think of the shadow of death, like that's like knocking on death's doorstep, I don't think it can get much worse for you. And maybe you've had that experience. Maybe you've been in those, that situation where you're just sitting there going, God, why is this happening to me? Why do I have to be going through this? And why do I feel like I'm going to die? Maybe literally, maybe mentally. I'm not sure what that looks like for you, but I know what it looked like for me. And even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table for me in the presence of my enemies. That's like, I think of an analogy of like myself going to work. I try to stay pretty positive, especially in a jail. But there's a lot of evil things that happen in the world, and those people that commit those evil things have to come into jail. And myself, I try not to focus on what they're in there for. I will look at it for my own safety, just in case I have to be aware of being around these people. I don't want to become complacent, but it's not my job to judge them. It's my job to take care of them while they're there in that jail. And that part of that verse really stood out to me, in that God prepares a table for me in front of my enemies, in front of this potentially evil situation, this potentially dangerous situation, knowing that even when I'm uncomfortable, even when I'm in a situation I don't want to be in, maybe I don't want to be around those certain people, I can still know who I am as a person, as a man of faith, as a husband, as a father, that I could be confident going into those situations. Amidst my enemies, amidst maybe people that don't like me, right in the middle of whatever negative situation that might be going on, and I can sit down and have dinner with them. God prepares a place for me at that table, right in the middle of them, because maybe he knows that they need to learn something from myself. Maybe this verse was there so that I can be confident in any situation that I go into, knowing that there's a purpose for it, that there is a lesson to be learned from it. I don't know what that looks like. Like I've said before, I'm no pastor, I'm no therapist, I'm no physical trainer. I'm just a guy trying to navigate my way through this game we all call life. I appreciate you guys being on this journey with me and sticking right in there with the Iron Purpose and the podcast. It really does mean a lot. Miranda Maverick, again, huge shout out to her. I'll be posting stuff about her upcoming fights when they're announced. And don't forget to show her some love. Hopefully you're able to learn something from this today. I know that I did. Selfishly, I learned a lot from it. And man, I enjoy every minute of this. Stay sharp, everybody.